Okay, right. So we are up to the two dots. Now the two dots is a new sugya. Yeah, mem hey amud aleph. Yeah, uman ein lo chazlaka b'chulu. So we said in the Mishnah that if you give your clothes or the like to a craftsman, someone to fix, to mend, it could be you give it to the cleaner, you give it to the laundrette. They can't turn around. That person can't turn around and say, actually, it's mine. And the Rashbam explains there, it's not talking about 3 years chazaka, right? Because the concept of a craftsman normally is about movable items, metalton. It's not about land, right? We're not talking about land. We're talking about people who do work on your clothing, a tailor or a dry cleaner. And therefore, we're talking about regular non-land. And the point of the Mishnah is that normally someone who is muhsak, he's got it even a short amount of time, and we see that it's in his possession, even though someone else has witnesses that it used to be his. The muhsak, the one who's got it now, is believed to say, "I bought it," right? Because normally, someone who buys metaltalin, he buys movable items. He acquires them without witnesses. You don't use aid for that. You don't have a documentation for that. You just buy the thing, okay? Unless it's something which is specifically meant for lending out, or renting, etc., etc. Because then you're not believed. If the assumption is that it was made to rent out. With regards to craftsmen, therefore, the chiddush is that even though it's something which is not usually hired out, okay, but is normally sent to a craftsman or a tailor, or whoever it is, to fix it up, okay, you can't form chazaka, you can't claim it's yours, since the other one had witnesses that it used to be his, and he says, I sent it to you to fix it. In other words, the din of umanei no chazaka flies in the face of the normal rule of hamotzi mechaver olav haraya. Hamotzi mechaver olav haraya normally means, if I go up to Jeremy and say, that garment is mine, and Jeremy says, prove it, Jeremy wins. Because I got to bring proof, right? That does not apply if Jeremy is a tailor, basically. And I say, I gave you that garment to fix. Because that's the normal way of doing things. And Jeremy can't claim the garment as his after and say, actually, really, it's mine, and you didn't give me to fix. No, you can't do that, okay? As long as I have witnesses that it used to be mine, so I've got witnesses that I was the original owner, and I claim that I gave it to you just to fix it temporarily, then you're not believed to say it's yours. Yeah? So that's how it is.
Witnesses to say that it was yours.
Yes, obviously. Because if I've got no evidence that this garment used to be mine, then Jeremy can legitimately say it's not yours, it's mine. Think about it. Think about it. Otherwise, I could go to a laundrette round the corner, and I can say, you see that really nice suit? That's mine. And because he's a laundrette, I'd be believed. That doesn't make any sense. If I've got proof that the suit used to be mine, if I've got proof that, I've got witnesses that say we saw that hanging in your cupboard.
Ticket.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, a ticket. Well, a ticket is really, you see, a ticket really probably trumps everything. Because a ticket is really Jeremy's admission that I own it.
Yes.
So he's not able to beat that, is he? In the Gemora of Matzia, the Dafyomi is full of this all the time, right? That we're talking about the concept of Chaim moda. Again and again, the one who says Chaim moda. That means the one who is obligated is agrees. If his own admission, his own admission is that he owes something, right? So that obviously that changes the paradigm, yeah. So now the Gemara says like this: Omar Rabba. This sugi is focused on a big debate between Rabba and Abaye, right? Rabba, the crowds are coming now. You see the crowds are coming. Omar Rabba says, right? Lo shonu. I don't think I'm for the share. I think so. Yeah, they are. Omar Rabba, lo shonu ela shemosar lo be'edim. Rabba says this only applies if he handed over to him with witnesses. Hi, good evening. He handed over to him with witnesses. Okay? But if he hands it over to him without witnesses, because he could say that never happened, this was always mine. When he also argues and says, I bought it, he's also believed. So, this sugya is going to revolve around a number of different parameters, number of different issues, right? Number of different issues. I'm just going to recap briefly for the arrivals. You might remember a few. There's new sugya. Don't worry, brand new sugya. So it doesn't need anything from what we've learned last. We've moved on from the cow and the field and the So, new sugya. We learn in the Mishnah the following din. The Mishnah says that if you give your clothes to a laundrette, or you give your suit to be recolored, or whatever you're going to do, right? Anything you own to a craftsman or a person who is a master of the arts of something, yeah? And the person says, when you go to get it back, he says, it's mine. You prove that it's yours. I'm saying it's mine. Halacha is that he's not believed. Why? Because that's what people do. They give things to a craftsman to fix, and he can't then claim ownership, right? That's how it is, okay? Now, the assumption is that is only, as we said, that Rashbam says, that's where you have witnesses, of course, that used to be yours. Like you've got witnesses that saw it in your cupboard, the suit. That's how you've got a claim of ownership, yeah? Obviously, right? But Abai and Rabbah are going to debate. Maybe you need something more than that. Rabbah says that this whole din only applies if there were witnesses who witnessed the transferal of the item. Right? But if there were no witnesses who witnessed the transferal of the item, that means to say, like normally happens, right? You go to a laundrette, it's early in the morning, you're the first one there as they open the doors, no one's around, there's no witnesses. You say it like that, but it's not, often there will be witnesses if you think about it.
Often there won't.
Yeah, but sometimes there will. So I'm saying, like, it can often be witnesses. But, there's no witnesses, right? There's no witnesses. I mean, it's an interesting question of how it becomes a witness, designating witness. Okay, whatever. There's no witnesses, right? He goes to laundrette first thing in the morning. No one's there apart from you and Mr. Laundrette. And you go there and you give him the item. Now, says Rabbah, if that was the scenario, he can deny it. Why? What can he say? He can say, I bought it. It's mine. I bought it from you. How can he say that? He's got a classic migo. We learned migo many times. Migo is, since you could have said a better argument, you'd be believed. We believe you when you say a worse argument. He could have said, deny the whole thing. There were never witnesses. So he could have denied the whole thing. He could have said, it's my garment. You see all those racks up there with all those clothes that I'm washing? Yeah, of course, there's my customers. This one, that's mine. Prove it's not. He could have said that. He could have said, Lo hayu dvarim ma'olam. This never happened. There are no witnesses. Who says you ever gave it to me? That's abbreviated lahadam. Lo hayu dvarim ma'olam. Lahadam. That's what he says, the short form, right? It never happened. Because he could have said it never happened, he's also believed to say when he says, Lo kochi biyadi, I bought it.
But even if the guy, the owner, has got witnesses that it was in his cupboard, I'd see.
Correct.
But if the owner's initial, just say the owner had his initials in his jacket,
Yeah.
then it wouldn't be a niggle anymore because that's
Why? Oh, I see. Then he would. Yeah. Then he. Yeah. Okay.
He has to say I bought it from you because it clearly came from the original owner.
So the question is, what is the claim that lo hayu dvarim me'olam? What does that mean? What does that mean that it never happened? What never happened? What does he do? He denies. So yeah, we're at the bottom of Mem Hey Amud Aleph. Yeah, he denies ever getting it from him. One second. So the Rashbam is going to explain all this in detail, but essentially, the lahadam is that he denies ever having received it. Do you understand? He denies ever having received it. That's the point. I never received it. This he says, I never received it. How did I get it? Well, how he could say someone else gave it to me, that you sold it to him, right? Okay, that's the point, right? So therefore, he can also say that you gave it to me and you sold it to me. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is the argument Rabbah wants to make. It's a bit the logic here is, as Rashbam will explain, Rabbah holds that a person who receives something with Adim, okay, he has to give it back with Adim as well. If you deposit something with someone else with Eidim, with witnesses, you have to give it back with witnesses. Okay, and therefore, he can't claim ownership because he has, he can't claim, and he can't say, he can't say I gave it back to you because he has no witness to say that, right? He can't say, he can't make any other claim. He has to be Eidim to the returning of the item. But if there are no Eidim, he has much more scope for making all sorts of claims. And because he could have made claims, he could have denied the whole thing, and he would have been believed. Okay, therefore, he's allowed to say as well that you sold it to me. Now, one thing we've got to be clear about, which Gemora doesn't explain, which is why it's quite a lot of Rashbam here, is the situation where we see the garment or not? That's a very critical question. Do we see it hanging up in the shop? Because that's going to make a big difference, right? His degree of deniability differs as to whether the garment is currently present. When he says lahadam, never happened, what does that mean? Never happened meaning, where's the garment? There's no garment. Like, he's denying the whole thing. Like, there were no witnesses, you gave it to me, so I deny I've ever got it. That's one way of looking at it. But if we see the garment hanging in the shop, you can't do that. So it has to be something else. Like, I deny that you gave me the garment. You gave it to someone else and they sold it to me, whatever. Some other story. I'm just saying the levels of deniability will differ depending on the facts we are aware of. That's what I'm saying, right? You understand? The critical distinction that Rabbah makes is between, did he give it with Eidim or not? Did he give it over to him with witnesses or not? Rabbah qualifies the Mishnah and says, when does an Uman not have chazaka? When his line of argument is massively restricted because there were witnesses there that saw it handed over to him. If there were witnesses who saw the garment given to the craftsman, garment given to the laundrette, garment given to the tailor, you're stuck. You're not going to be able to argue anything. We'll see in the Rashbam exactly why you can't make any argument, right? However, if there was no witnesses, wow, now everything's opened up because there's all sorts of fantastical claims he could have made. There were no witnesses. No one saw. He could have denied I ever got it. He could have denied that you didn't give it to me. You sold it to someone else who sold it to me. If we saw it in his hat, whatever, all sorts of things, right? And therefore, he's got much more scope for being believed. You had a problem with that, Paul?
No, just a question. We're talking about regular items. We're not talking about particularly high value items.
I don't think it makes a difference. The main thing is that we're not talking about land. We're talking about regular movable items. We call them metaltalin, clothes, garments. What?
Surely,
Why?
it's a high value item, then you would have a star, or you would have something.
Well, witnesses,
Maybe it's no, that's fair.
That's
That's a fair point, but I don't think the Gemara, at least I haven't seen the Gemara makes that sort of distinction.
Have minutes to do that.
Why? People don't always. You can assume that people don't give things over. That with metaltalin, people don't usually use Eidim. That's the assumption. That's the starting point. The assumption is that people don't normally give things over with Eidim. I mean, maybe they will if it's more expensive. We don't know. We don't know they would. Well, it could be that there would be more likely to be Eidim there, but the qualification works either way. Meaning, yes, okay, fine. So normally, if it's going to be more expensive, it's more likely there's Eidim, and if there isn't, that doesn't matter. The point is the same logic applies, right? You're right, Avi. You're right. Normally, if it was something expensive, you'd expect there to be witnesses, yeah, or some form of documentation. Yeah. But you have to always remember that shtaros are not like nowadays. The availability and usage of paperwork. No, in the time of the Gemara, the availability and usage of paperwork was just massively reduced than nowadays. So what we assume as the norm, because it's so easy for us to do that type of thing, was just not the norm. They did it for land. It's a big deal. They didn't.
Basically, Robert is posing a very
yeah.
very, very high level.
Yeah.
Of what's the word? Of claim or of support for his claim for the owner of the article.
Meaning
that the only way that the owner.
Oh, yes, can be sure that he can get it back. Yeah. Yeah, it's by handing over with witnesses. Yeah.
Feels to me.
Yeah.
Impractical.
Okay, fine. That's a fair comment. You got to hold that thought because I say no, because we've got to see how Abai and Rabba debate this. So we've got to see, yeah.
If there's going to be people working in the dry cleaner, they're all going to be on the same side.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
But you're going to rely on what two customers being in the shop and then how you're going to drop them off their thing.
Yes, right.
Even if there are people around there, not.
Yeah.
Because they stand to gain from exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Yeah.
So look, I mean, let's see. So let's see that again. We'll see all the Rashbam because let's look at it carefully. But let's just see the debate between Rabbi and Abai. Omele Abai, so Abai said to Rabbi. Abai, remember, was the Talmud of Rabbi. It's important to remember that. Abai and Rava are contemporaries. That's why you have many debates in the Gemora between Abai and Rava. And the halacha is always like Rava, except for Ya'al Kagam. Yud Ayin Lamed Kagam. There are abbreviation Ya'al Kagam, right? There are 6 cases in the whole Gemora. When we see, yeah, and the next one's coming up in the second parak. The most famous one of those famous ones is Yesh Midas. Yesh Midas, which is an element Sias, right? Yeah, but there are 6 cases in the Gemara. Very good. There are 6 cases in the Gemara where halacha is like Abai over Rava when they debate something. Otherwise, halacha is always like Rava. So Abai and Rava are sparring partners, a bit like Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, right? They're sparring partners. They always do it. But Rabba was the generation before. Rabba's the teacher of Abai and Rava. Do you understand? So Abai. I don't know. Rabba's a contemporary of Yosef. I can't remember who Rabba's teacher is. It's possible review. I don't know. Anyway, the point is Abai here is challenging his teacher, right? Omale Abai said to him, if so, afilu be'edim nami. The same logic should apply even if he gave it to him with witnesses. There's still a migoy. He could have said, I gave it back. I gave it back to you. And he'd be believed. When he says to him, when he says, I bought, you did sell it to me, you gave it to me, but you sold it to me. You should also be believed. Straightforward migoy. Abai says he can say, I gave it back. And because they would have said I gave it back, the concept of migoy is, since I could have said a really straightforward thing and I would be believed, give me believability when I don't say that and I say something more convoluted, basically, right? I could have said, I gave it back to you. I could have denied the whole thing. I gave it back to you. And I didn't do that. And I said, no, you're right. You did give it to me, but I bought it from you. And therefore I'm entitled to keep it. And therefore, why can't you say a migoy? If it's true what you're saying, Abai says, then a migoy can work even if he gave it to him with witnesses. That means to say, even with witnesses, the craftsman should keep it. And then we're going to be a bit stuck because there's not going to be any case where the halacha applies in the Mishnah. That's what. But no, that's Rabba challenges him. Omale Rabba. Rabba said to him, "Mi sovers, do you think I'm after chaver be'edim? Do you think that someone who deposits something with someone else with witnesses does not need to return it with witnesses? Lo sakadaitach. Don't think that. That's incorrect. Someone who deposits something with someone else with witnesses has to return it with witnesses. So therefore, your logic falls away. You can't say, if he hands it over with witnesses, he could have said, I gave it back. He couldn't say that.
Why?
Because you need witnesses to do that. Where are the witnesses? If you're saying you return it to me, the halacha says our Rabbah. Yeah. Correct. So that's basically what the key point at the moment that the debate between Abai and Rabbah turns on is this point, right? This point is if a person hands over to someone else something with witnesses, any deposit, I give you something to look after, Shemachinon, whatever it is, using look after, yeah? Do you need, right, to return it with witnesses as well? Abai says, no, you don't need to do that. No, just because you chose to use witnesses, I need to use witnesses, and therefore I can always claim I returned it. And Rabbah says, no, if you received something with witnesses, you have to return it with witnesses. And that means that if you try and argue that I gave it back, you won't be believed, because we'll say, where are the witnesses? And if you won't be believed to say I gave it back, okay, you haven't got a migoy. So therefore you've got no believability to your claim. The point of a migoy, right, is that it gives you believability. Yes? It makes you believable. That's what a migoy is. Yeah? Migoy is relevant to toyen v'nitan, which is the whole parak. Yes? Toyen v'nitan, claim and counterclaim. Yeah? Who says? Who's believed? Me or Paul? They still have to work it out. The mechanism of a migoy helps them solve that dilemma. Yes? Paul has a migoy. There's a logic to believing. Migoy's a svara. It's logical, right? We don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Who's telling the truth? So basically say, 1 second. If Paul was lying, he would have said a better lie. And he'd be believed. He could have just said, never happened. Or I gave it back to you. And he didn't do that. He said, it's true. You did give it to me, but I paid you fair and square. So that's a logical argument to believe Paul. But that has to work. And if he could never have said the simpler argument, If he could never have said, you understand? If he could never have said, I gave it back, because to do that, he'd have to produce witnesses. Yeah. Then he has no migoi. He has no logic anymore. The logical argument, it falls away. You understand that? That's what migoi is.
I'm just trying to understand the bias argument that you wouldn't need the witnesses to the latter stage.
Okay, so that we'll have to see the Rashbam, but there's a logic to that, which is just because I decided to hand it over to you with Adam, who is
when he's returning.
Why?
Because if he
Again, he hasn't returned it. Remember, this is all in his mind. Okay, it's all in his mind. What he's actually said is that you sold it to me. That's what he's actually said. Okay, that's the claim that Paul has actually made. You bought it. You're telling me that this suit you just gave me to fix. I'm saying, Paul is saying, no, not true. What you actually did was you sold it to me and I paid for it. That's what Paul is saying, right? Now, Paul's claim is that our question is, how do we know whether to believe him or not? And on that basis, we need a migo. Yeah, since he could have said something else, therefore, right? Since he could have said something better if he was lying. That's a proof that he's telling the truth. Yeah.
That's a little bit. Saying something better is a bit subjective, because the better argument in this case is the one that actually wins the argument, not the one that necessarily is more, perhaps high level.
No, but the higher level claim, I know what you mean, but the higher level, I think the higher level claim gives believability to what I actually say. You see, how do I know you're telling the truth? When you say you sold it, you bought it, no one's got any evidence. There's no agent, right?
Yep.
So who says you're telling the truth? I don't know. How do Bastin know that you're telling the truth?
Is it legally normative? You're saying normally someone in this situation, if they were lying, would say that.
Right.
So if they're not, it's outside the normal, therefore.
It's a better lie. That's the point. It's a better lie. It's a better lie. It's a better lie to go a million miles away from what the other guy's saying, right? If you're lying, you're going to do something simpler. You're not going to do it more complicated, right? If someone comes to your house and says, "You see that vase? That's mine." Okay, so clearly it's better for you to say, "No, it's not. You're talking rubbish," right? Yeah. Or there is a suit in your house that's mine. The better thing for you to say is, "No, there isn't. There's no such thing." And if there was, I gave it back already, or whatever. There's no such thing, right? Clearly, it puts me in a more invidious position if I agree partly to what you're saying. It's true. You did give it to me, but I bought it. Correct. It's a bit like that. There's a lot of discussion amongst the Achronim, the Katsos and everything, all the Lomdas in Migo and how it works and what exactly it is. Is it what level of proof it is? You can't say Migo b'mokom edim. You learn that. You can't say Migo against witnesses, right? Migo can't beat witnesses. Migo is a svara, it's a logic. It's not as good as witnesses. If I've got witnesses that big, yeah.
Is it generally, can it be accepted?
What Migo? Yeah, Migo is yeah, of course. It is admissible in a court of law, but it only works as far as it goes. So if I've got logic, if there's a logical argument that I'm telling the truth, right, and Avi produces witnesses that you took it, and I gave it, witnesses come along and prove that, then obviously that beats the migo, yeah? That's how it is.
It's a probability as opposed to...
Yeah, it's a logic. It's a logic. There are different ways of evidence. There are different methodologies that a Bastin will employ in order to try and establish who is telling the truth, right? Sometimes those things are simple. They're evidential, right? Evidential. Prove to me. Bring me some witnesses, okay? Bring me some witnesses. Other things are logic. It's not so things, not so thing. Logic. This applies in many different areas of halacha, right? I could interview a couple, for example, which is an Even Hoezer area of halacha. I'm trying to establish whether people are single. Single status. We do two things, Jewish and single, right? Jewish and single. Jewish status, obviously, is evidence-based, right? Okay, you've got to make sure that your parents married, ksuba, whatever, work out they're Jewish, okay? Single status is also evidence-based. You have to have some proof that they're single, okay? But there is logic that comes into it as well. What? No, we have klolim, we have rules. We have rules as to what level of evidence. It is proving a negative, and therefore it's not so simple. But what I'm saying, again, we have, like all Botei Din in the world, we have principles that we work on that have decades upon decades upon decades to establish single status, right? But there is a logic element to it as well. That means there's a svara, and that is like this. normally, again, different things. What we require, is a signed letter from a parent confirming, some of you have done this, confirming that the child is single, right? The parent signs and dates the fact that the child is single. Now, there's all sorts of questions on that, right? Parent can't give evidence for a child. It's only one aid as well, etc. So clearly, we're not relying on the formal halachas of aidus. You're not a formal aid. Yes, you understand? What is it then? It's what we call milsa da'avido liglui. If the person had really been married, number one, the person wouldn't put their name to it like that. The parents, they'd end up like ruining themselves, etc., and their child's future, all this, things like that, whatever, right? Number two, it is something where, because these people and these families are local, they live in the UK and people know them, etc., etc., it would come out if in fact they had been previously married. So there is a range of things that we factor into there are some of them are logic. They're not just purely evidential. There's a logic, there's a svara. Okay. Now, by the way, it's very complicated. I'm simplifying because there are all sorts of cases where sometimes we need more than that. What?
Never thought there was anything.
No, because I'll tell you why. Because that's a classic, straightforward case. It's a straightforward situation, regular family. But why people come from abroad? We need much more then, because we don't know they're not local people. I don't know. It's not good enough then. And we have to usually get a letter from a certificate from a Basin confirming they're single. Let them do the homework and confirm to us that they're single. I'm just saying there's different law rules of evidence required in different situations, right? So let's see the Rashbam on this, okay? The Rashbam says, Omar Rabba, right? The Rashbam is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up before it gets wide. Yeah? On Mem Hey Amud Aleph. Sorry, one line before then. Uman ein no chazaka, an uman, a craftsman has no chazaka. Masnisini, this is our Mishnah, Diktani, which says, right? The Mishnah, the beginning of the Mishnah talks about Umnin, craftsmen, and Arisin, and sharecroppers. Each one is a different case. And each case the Gemora is going to explain, right? One by one. Okay? Can only say, when do we say there is no chazaka to claim that he bought it? And the craftsman needs to pay to the owner his garments or his items or whatever it is. Okay? This is only when the owner hands over to the craftsman his talis in front of witnesses. The saknu to fix it. Therefore, even if we don't see now the talis in the hand of the craftsman, or balabayas tovoi talisoi, the balabayas claims his talis. The craftsman can't claim, I gave back to you already. This because Rabba holds Rabba holds that someone who deposits with someone else with witnesses has to return it with witnesses, as we explain later on. As we explain in a minute. And he should have returned it with witnesses. Okay? So, this is going on the position of, we don't, remember I told you we have to establish, do we see it or not? Rashbam has to handle both sides. Is it visible now in the Uman's house or not? He's saying, even if we don't see it in the house of the Uman, okay, he can't say, I gave it back to you, right? Why? Because if he gave it back to him, there should be witnesses, right? You have to return it with witnesses, and you didn't have Eidim, so you're not believed. The Kolshkin, how much more so, how much more so if we see it in the craftsman's house? We actually see it, it's visible, the suit's there. How much more so can he not say, I bought it, right? Because the witnesses testify that it came to him as a deposit. Because in front of them, he handed it over to him, right? So if we see it, it's sitting there in his house. I can't say it's mine. I can't say I bought it. How can you say I bought it? There are Eidim there that testify that it came to him as a deposit. Okay. So you understand? The point is like this: if we don't see it in his house, so we don't know if it's there now. It's not yet, right? He can't. What claim could he make? Potentially.
If you don't see it.
One second. we're going on. We're saying Rabbi's saying the scenario is that he handed over to him with Adim. So there were Adim present. So what options does he have? Can he deny it? That he ever received it? No, because they're Adim, right? So what could he do? Firstly, let's talk about if we don't currently see it in his possession. There's no suit hanging up there. So we don't actually know if it's still in his house. So what argument could he make? I gave it back. Correct. No, so that he can't do, says Rabbi, because you need Adim to do that. Oh, right. Now let's say we see it in his house. Right. So if we see it in his house, or even if we don't, but even if we do see it in his house, the one argument, the one thing left, like playing chess, the final move he's got, because remember, there were Adim that he gave it to him, and there we can see it now in his house. So what one move has he got left? I bought it from you, fair and square. Okay?
And I don't need Aiden. I don't need Aiden for that.
Well, whatever, I can go. That's the way Adim, you gave it to me, and I paid you. I paid you. And Adim don't say either way. What was that?
Gift. He gave.
Yeah. I gave me as a gift. Yeah. So the halacha is he can't say that. Why not? Why not?
Because what the argument expects.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe you. There's no migo. What are you going to say? We believe you when you say that you bought it. What? Since you could have said what? I gave it back to you. You can't say that because there's no Adim. And that's why, according to Rabbah, if there are witnesses, you have no argument. Because you need a second argument to rely on. You need a migof. Exactly. You don't have that. The only thing you could say is either I gave it back if there were no Adim, but you can't do that because you need Adim, right? Or I bought it, and you can't do that because you have no migo. That's it, right? Omiyu. However, there is something else you could say, which is quite interesting. You could make the following claim. You could say, I gave it back to you in front of witnesses, but they went overseas. Such a shame. I want witnesses, but what can I do? They've gone off to Timbuktu. They're not here anymore. And then you'd be believed. We say in Shvuos, even according to one who says, someone who lends someone else with witnesses, he has to pay him back with witnesses. If he says, I paid you off in front of so-and-so and so-and-so, and they went overseas, no one is believed. He's believed, right? He's believed. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, because I think it's because
just wait until they get back.
It's because the Rosh is going to explain. The Rosh is going to explain. Basically, Rosh is going to explain. Rosh is going to explain. Rosh is going to explain. And the answer, the simple answer is, Rosh is going to explain. The simple answer is it's such an extreme thing to say. It's what I mentioned before. It's a milsadat vidaliglu. If you were lying, it would become public knowledge. We'll see. It's such an extreme thing to say. But the catch is, you have to say it. If you don't make that claim, we're not going to make that claim for you. We're not going to migoy off it. Amiyu, however, I like that phrase. Kolzman deloitoin as long as he just says, I gave it back to you without witnesses, Eino Neman is not believed. Right? That was the migoy. Why? And that which we don't say, since he could have said, Paratik, I paid you back, he could have said, I paid you back in front of so-and-so, and they went overseas. So too, and he says, I gave it back to you just between us. He should be believed. Let's say migoy. You understand? Paul, that's what we're saying. We can migoy off that claim. We could say like this. I'm saying, I gave it back to you between us. And I've got a migoy. Because I could have said, because you're going to say back to me, well, I don't believe you gave it back to me because you don't have Adim. But I'm going to say, I don't have Adim, but I've got a really good migoy. Migoy, I could have said that I gave it back to you in front of witnesses and they're gone overseas now, and I'd be believed. So you should believe me when I say that I didn't give that I gave it back to you between us by myself. Why not? It's a good logical argument, no?
I think it's because you alluded to it before, because it's such a difficult thing to.
So no, he says. You can't do any migo like that. That does not work. You've broken the rules of migo. Why? The kivon, since the low Adim, since he did not pay him back in front of witnesses, he did not do that. It's not what he's saying. He's saying, I gave it back to you between us without witnesses. He can't say, I gave it back in front of so-and-so and so-and-so, and they went overseas. People don't lie about something which is going to be revealed, is going to be found out. Lest he be found to be a liar today or tomorrow. If the witnesses come back from overseas, and they say, what are you talking about? You never saw anything. So this is a very important rule in the rules of Migo. To make a Migo, both sides have to be plausible for you in your current situation, right? You understand? Yeah, that's what Migo is. Since I could have said if I was lying, I would have said that, because that'd be much, much better, right? So believe me when I say something a bit funny. That's what Migo is, yeah? If I was lying, I would be able to say that. If there are no witnesses, then I didn't give over witnesses, then I could have said a fantastic lie. I would have said, I would have said whatever. I would have said you never gave it to me, or whatever. I would deny the whole thing, right? And I'd be believed. So therefore, I should be believed when I said I bought it from you, whatever. I could have said I give it back to you because you didn't give it to me with Adim. I could have said I got it back to you. So believe me when I said you sold it to me, whatever, right? That's because both are plausible in my situation. I could have said this, I could have said that. I would have said the better lie if I was lying. Here, you can't say, well, believe him when he says I gave it back privately. There are no witnesses. Yeah, because since I could have said I gave it back to you, and there were witnesses, they went overseas. But you wouldn't say that.
Better lie. It might be a better lie.
Well, it is a better lie in the sense that it would get you, it would win. Yeah, it would win, but you would never say it. Do you know why you didn't say it? Do you know why you didn't say it? Because you knew you'd get found out. And therefore it's not a Migo. Migo is, since I could have said that, and I'd be believed, but you wouldn't be believed because you're worried about being found out. So in other words, it doesn't give you believability. That's what Migo is meant to do. Migo is meant to reassure Beis Din. Migo is a reassurance to Beis Din. Like Beis Din, I'm not sure what to do with it. There's a logic to believe him, because he would have said that, but he wouldn't say that because then he'd be caught out if he was lying. Okay, a very important thing. Pardon?
That's why it's the way lie.
Yeah, that it has to be exactly. It has to be a better lie. It has to be a better lie. That is the point here. That is the point here. 1 minute. Yeah, so the Rosh here, interestingly, has another suggestion. The Rosh says he could say, I paid you off in front of so-and-so. There could be another Migo. Shemesu, who are dead.
Yeah, Jeremy said that.
Oh, did you? Paul said that? Did you? The Rosh asked your question. It's a great question. It's a great question. You understand? That's a good Migo. He could have said, I gave it back to you between us, and you should believe me, Migo, since I could have said that I gave in front of these two Adim and they died. And then I won't be found out. He says that's not a Migo. That's not a good Migo. Because people will say, Ki Yomru Nikashu Mashaker. It's evident that he's lying. That's why he conveniently mentions dead witnesses. So again, it's faulty. You understand? Because the whole point of a Migo is, if I was lying, I would say a better lie. But I wouldn't say that because I wouldn't say it because it looks dodgy. Oh, you happen to have witnesses. They just happen to have died. You wouldn't do that, right? Well, how convenient, exactly. And I know that people are going to think that I'm lying, and that's why I didn't say it. And therefore, I don't have a Migo.
Unless it's the truth. In which case, it's outlandish that you can be believed.
Yeah, if it's the truth. Yeah, no. If it's the truth, it's fine. If it's the truth, it's fine. But the point is that the people who are establishing the truth here, are Beis Din trying to establish whether or not you're telling the truth. In order to do that, Beis Din need some sort of basis on which to believe you, and that basis can be a logical argument. If you were lying, say a better lie. Therefore, it's much more sensitive than this. But that has to be a better lie that exists. If not, it doesn't help. So that's the Rosh. Okay. Now is Avul Mosala Shelo Be'edim, says the Rashbam. Now the flip side of Rabba. Avul Mosala Shelo Be'edim. But what happens if he handed over to him without witnesses? So there's no witnesses there. So now this is where the craftsman will be believed. Loin, and he says, you know what, says Rashbam? According to Rabba, he's going to be believed now both ways. whether we see the garment in his possession or not. Again, same as before, it's just a flip side. With the first way round, the Rashbam was at pains to tell us that it makes no difference whether we see the garment in his possession or we don't. It doesn't make a difference. If there are witnesses, you have no migoy. The Rashbam is going to do the same thing in the reverse and say that if there are no witnesses, it doesn't matter whether we see the suit or not. If there are no witnesses, I've still got a plausible migoy. He's going to explain what that is, both ways around. Do you understand? Lo miboy, not only but we don't see the garment in his hand. Since he could say, it's true that you handed it over to me, but I returned it to you, okay? V'ne'amon, and he'd be believed, okay? Because he doesn't need to return it with witnesses now, because he never received it with witnesses. He's got a great migo, yeah? If we didn't see the garment in his house, we never saw it, right? So obviously, he's got a fantastic migo. He can say, I can say, you sold it to me, because I could just say, I gave it back to you. And you don't need witnesses, because I never received it with witnesses, right? Yes, so I've got a great migo.
What's the migo?
The migo is, I can say, what I'm actually saying is, you sold it to me, right? Believe me when I say I sold it to you, because if I was lying, I would have just said I gave it back. And because I didn't receive it with witnesses, I don't need witnesses to my returning of the item. Because again, we're going on the other side now. There are no witnesses. That means there were no witnesses to the point of handover. If there were no witnesses at the point of handover, I can just go and give it back to you without witnesses. Do you know what it means to give it back witnesses? I could have put it in your house in the middle of the night, whatever. I gave it back to you, whatever. I just gave it back.
And this is where it's obviously not hanging in the...
No, yeah, this way it's not hanging. Of course, if it's hanging in the shop, then I can't say I gave it back because it's over there, right? So obviously that's not an argument, right? So that when it's not visible, it's obvious why I should be believed, because I can say I bought it because I could have just said I gave it back and no one would be the wiser, right? Inami, alternatively, yochal lomar, he could say something even better. Really, he could say lo hoyu dvarim me'olam. He said never happened. Shalom asartali. You never gave it to me. And he believed with a shvur d'rabbanan. Okay, there's a shvur d'rabbanan. The din is that if I say something, we learned this in Bava Metzia, if I lend you something or give you something and you deny it completely, Chazal institute a shvur. It's called a shvur sesses. Shvur d'rabbanan basically stop people playing monkey business. Yeah, that basically to stop people denying things outright. Okay, ki omar lo nami yeshna biyodi. Therefore, since he could have said that, he could have denied the whole thing. It's in my hand, but I bought it. Because you sold it to me. Because he's got a chazaka. In other words, he's got current possession. That's what it means, really, right? And he's believed through this migo. So that's all straightforward, right? In a case where we don't see the suit hanging on the shelf, he's got a straightforward migo. Because he's got two. In other words, what he says, you sold it to me. And we believe him. Migo, he could have said, I gave it back to you. Or he could have said, it never happened. He could have said, you never gave it to me. The whole thing didn't ever happen, right? He just denies the whole thing, right? Yeah. Right, you with me? Even even if there are Eidim who actually see the garment in the hand of the craftsman, so we see the suit hanging on the shelf, and the Eidim testify that this suit belongs to Ruvain. Belongs to the guy who's claiming it. So we know the suit. Everyone knows what the suit is. You understand? They testify that this used to be Reuven's suit. We saw it hanging in his house, and a week later, we see it in your shop, in your laundrette, right? Either the Eidim will testify that it's in his house, or he's actually holding it in front of us, literally. The suit's there. Think of that first mission in Bava Metzia. Okay, they're both holding it. But it's there. He's holding it. He's holding the suit, right? Because he could have said, this never happened. Now, what does that mean, never happened? The suit's here. Doesn't mean never happened like it never happened. It means like this. Your story never happened. You never gave it to me. You never handed me this garment. Someone else gave it to me. Remember, there are no Eidim. I walked into the laundrette in this case at 8 a.m. and there was no one there. Right? So I can make up a whole story. I could say that actually someone else gave it to me, right? It wasn't Ruvain, it was Shimon who gave it to me. Shemachar Toiloi. You sold it to him. Yes, it's true that everyone knows that this nice suit used to be yours. Someone else gave it to me, and you sold it to him. And he sold it to me, and that's why I own it. So he could have said that. So when he says, you handed it over to me and you sold it to me, he's believed with this migoy. Right? So this migoy is, again, we've constructed two sets of migoys. We constructed a simple migoy, which is where we don't see the item. Everyone's got that, yeah? Well, we don't see the item, the migoy is straightforward, right? I could have said, believe me when I say I bought it, because I could have said, this never happened, or whatever, or I gave it back to you already, etc., right? But even where we see the garment in his house, he still has a migoy. Again, if he was lying, he would say a better lie. What would be the better lie? The better lie would be, you are arguing that the garment used to be yours. I'm telling you, I never bought it from you. I bought it from someone else. You sold it to someone else, and he sold it to me, right? So therefore, when I walk towards your claim,
Just go to that person and ask.
That's the equivalent of someone died, who has died of witness when it sees.
because
Claiming that about my garment, and I said, hang on a second, you sold.
I'll pluck someone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'll pluck someone out of thin air. I'll create a story, about Naphtali or Gad or Osher. It doesn't matter who they are. Meaning, again, no one saw this apart from me and you. It's my word against you, right? Again, I'm not making this spiel. I'm not actually saying it. What am I actually saying in front of Beis Din? I'm saying, I bought it from you. That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying to Beis Din, you gave it to me and I paid for it. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying Beis Din will construct a logical argument to believe you. And that is, if you were lying, why would you walk towards his claim? Why would you say that, yes, you did give it to me and I bought it? Say something much better. No one saw the transaction. If you were lying, it's much better for you to say that, what are you talking about? You're talking nonsense. This never happened. Never happened. I don't even know who you are. Actually, I do know who you are, because the person I bought it from told me he bought it from you. Because remember, he has to find some spiel that works, because everyone knows that it used to belong to Reuven, right? Yeah, and he sold it to me.
Quite a difficult migoy.
It's a bit harder. It's a bit harder, but it's a bit harder. It's a little bit hard. It's a little bit harder.
Is this the Rashbam's interpretation?
It's a little bit harder. No, the Rashbam is telling us a migoy which works. Again, the Gemora is going to change all this later, but the Gemora at this stage
is bringing this.
Yeah, because I tell you why the Rashbam is. Yeah, the Rashbam has to do this. I'll tell you why. Because he explains in the next words. He explains it. One second. He explains it in the next words.
If Rashi had written it, wouldn't it have been shorter?
No. Okay, the Rashbam has a longer phraseology. But yeah. But it's actually no. But the language is easier.
So long-winded.
Yeah. The Rashbam is. Yeah.
My first one is not so.
You have to hold cop with the Rashbam. The Rashbam is the stylistically is much more long-winded than Rashi, 100%, right? It's much lengthier, but fundamentally he's trying to arrive at the same point. It's all explanations. All it is explaining the Gemara. It sounds like it's nothing. It's not extraneous. He's not making it complicated. He's not. Rashbam has a problem, and that is he has to find a way to explain Rabbah, both in a situation where you see the suit and you don't. It's not good enough to explain it just where you see the suit. Well, that's Inami. Where's Inami?
The other one is the second part. Inami in the second line.
Oh, okay. All right. He split that in two examples. Okay. All right. Okay. Two examples of the first one. All right. Okay. You have to write a letter to him. He obviously had a reason. No, obviously there was a reason why I had to pray. Each bit is designed to bring out a different point. Like you can even say a bed of migo. Okay. But look at the Rashbam now. He says, this is why I had to explain this to you, both whether you see the garment or not. Yeah? The Sfirle Rabbah, by the way, I find it very helpful. It's up to you. But what I found, when I learned this many years ago, I learned Bava Basra twice. I did the same with Toras, all sorts of Masechtas. I underline things. A big Rashbam, I break it up with underline. So in this Rashbam, the next line is underlined in my Gemara. For me, that's beautiful. Because I don't see it now as one Rashbam. I know where I'm getting. I know I'm getting the key line. It's good for Chazar as well. That's how I do it, right? Not underlining. I do this throughout the thing. I did it many times, doing Tosos as well, all over the place. My Gemara are full of underlinings because
many different ones as well, like Myra.
Yeah. But this is like in a Rashbam, it's very helpful. This because now it's at the key line. The Sfirle Rabbah, because Rabbah. I mean, I must have underlined. I don't know, 20 years ago. It doesn't matter, right? It's still here, right? The Sfirle Rabbah, because Rabbah holds Hashta now. The Heicha. In other words, at the moment we're assuming Rabbah holds as follows: the Heicha lo masolo be'edim, where he did not hand it over with witnesses. Lo shno ra hatalas biyodei achshov. It makes no difference. No difference whether he saw the talis in his hand now, we see it in his hand now, lo shno lo ra, or no difference where we didn't see it in his hand, yesh chazaka. There is a chazaka, right? There is a chazaka both ways. You know, so you can claim ownership, right? Because he does not compare it to a situation of the halacha, which is of things that are normally hired out or lent out. And the other one says, and the other one says, I bought them, the Einu Ne'eman, where he's not believed. That's the din. Things that are normally rented out, you're not believed to say I bought them. That's not halacha. Why? Because they're normally rented out, right? If you have a car that's got a big sign on it which says this is for hire purposes only, you can't come along and say I bought it from you. You're not believed. Why? Because people don't buy things. These things are normally hired out. So we go with the norm. You understand, right? Okay. So since the person who claims it was his has witnesses that it used to belong to him. Even though there are no witnesses supporting that he handed it over as a hire agreement or a loan, right? There, renting and hiring, people rent and hire to all of their neighbors. And therefore, it's assumed that it was a hire agreement. And if you turn around to me and say, I bought it, you're not believed, yes? You understand that? Yeah, it's simple. But over here, Motzi Omar Uman, craftsman can say, you don't normally come to me. You use my competitor. You use the laundrette down the road. You don't usually come to my laundrette. And this is proven later on to the Rabbah, according to Rabbah, Loshna Ra, Loshna Lo Ra. It doesn't make a difference whether we saw it in his possession or we did not see it in his possession. Yesh lo le'oman chazaka. The oman has chazaka. Heicha deleika masiro be'edim. He can claim ownership as long as it wasn't handed over with witnesses. Okay. In other words, the key point is, right, that Rabbah holds there is chazaka. There is chazaka. What does it mean chazaka in this case? Again, chazaka doesn't mean 3 years. Yeah, chazaka just means chazaka like as in assumed to be the owner, right? Assumed to be the owner, right? The craftsman has chazaka. Why? Why? Because there's a fundamental difference between this case and a case of things that are normally rented out or hired out, whatever. Things that are normally rented or hired, like the car or whatever, right? Yeah, you're never believed to say you bought them. Full stop. Don't bring in migos. You're not believed. What the words that came out of your mouth are not believed. That's the point, right? The words that came out of your mouth, which are "I bought it," are not believed, right? Because people don't. It's a hire agreement. It's normally for hiring, right? Here, yes, here this is different because here this is something where I'm turning around to you and saying, you're claiming that you gave it to me just to fix it, like to tailor it or whatever it was, right? And I'm saying, it's not true. I bought it from you. Are you going to say to me, what are you talking about? You're a tailor. But I can respond to that and say, but you never come to me for tailoring. You use other tailors. You don't come to me for tailoring. Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's fine. That's a good question. That's a good question on how you would deal with that. But the point is let's assume that's not the case or whatever. So in this situation, therefore, he is believed to say that a rabbi says it makes no difference. Paul's question was, let's say you're the only tailor in town. Does that strengthen the position of the owner to say, actually, I must have given you a tailoring, yeah? Yeah, the only thing is you can also say, what, is a tailor never allowed to buy a suit?
You have to assume that it's not. That's not.
But is a tailor, I don't know, is a tailor never allowed to buy a suit? I mean, you can say, anyway, the point is like this, is that, he is, Rabbah says that in a situation where the garment was never handed over with Adim, the actual handing over was not with Adim, then it doesn't make a difference whether we currently see it hanging in your shelf or not. It makes no difference whether we're seeing it hang up or not. Both ways, you are believed if you say, if the craftsman says, I bought it, he's believed. Right? Because in both cases, there's a plausible migo. That's the point. Both cases are plausible migo. So the starting point has to be that the words that come out your mouth have to be believable. If there is a car which has all over it stickers saying, this is for hiring only, then you can't claim to have bought it, right? But in a situation where it's a suit. You could have bought it. You could be given it to fix, right? There is as long as there's a plausible migo, you'll be believed.
Could Chazal have like a sort of public policy underlying their rationale?
Which is what?
Which is that someone's going to be put out of business if we keep coming along and challenging him and taking his stock and or clearly damages.
maybe.
You know, a couple of bad actors can come. He's a
Yeah.
target. You know, he could be.
Well, Chazal definitely take into account in the rules that surround Migo and everything else is to, you know, who should we believe, who's more likely, logic, you know, there is that, yeah. Anyway, very good. Okay, so we'll have to carry this on next time.
Curiosity, no one has to wait. I'm just wondering, this long Tosos that's on the similar sort of topic, does Tosos shed any light into this?
I can't recall. I haven't gone through the Tosos this time. I've learned it in the past, but I don't remember offhand. So I'm sure he probably does, but one would have to learn it through. Very good. All right, then. See you next. Okay.
Report back next time.
Next year's Shushan Purim session.
Are we having one?
Yeah.
I'll see why not. By the Shushan Purim night, there's no reason why it can't. Well, I'm assuming though. I mean, we'll take a sounding with the people who are around, but I'll see why not. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.